Hey guys, here with another book review. I'm trying to keep it a little bit hushed down right now because it's actually pretty late at night. But yeah, I was trying to put this in my recommended things to review. Death in Venice by Thomas Mann. And it is technically a novella, I think. That's why this looks a little bit thicker because there's actually a bunch of other short stories in there, which are really great as well. Um, I feel bad because I can't really recall them off the top of my head, but Death in Venice, I believe, was published in 1913 or so, 12 or 13. Probably getting that pretty wrong, but it is probably one of the more maybe like less overtly intellectual, but more passionate, I think, of Thomas Mann's works. He's known for pretty ambitious works, like Dr. Faustus is like, just, obviously later on than this by a good deal. But, that and The Magic Mountain and Buddenbrooks, like his first book, were all very, pretty big statements, I think, of like society. But this is more the individual experience, namely of the main character, whose name is Aschenbach, I believe, and he is added the name I think von to his name because in German I think that actually means like if you're, because he's like kind of an award-winning poet, this Aschenbach fellow, and he goes on a trip to Venice, Italy, because he's in his hometown. I believe it starts out in Germany somewhere. I believe Berlin. I think one of the major cities of Germany, and he's seeking to kind of get away from that. And one of the reasons I think is because uh, he is getting older and he's realizing that even though there's kind of he has these these really salient, very lofty literary prizes and recognition, like he's very eminent, he still feels kind of out of touch with himself, and he's like, he feels like he's definitely getting older and kind of losing that spark he once had. So he goes to Italy, and and it's like the city of beauty and youth, and he goes there and kind of ambles around, and right off the bat, I think, falls. He sees a young boy walking around named Tadzio, and he never actually formally introduces himself to this young boy. He always, I believe, he's like supposed to be like a young man of like 13 or something, 13, 14. So he's like, and he's very taken in by him, by Tadzio's beauty, because that's very in a platonic way almost. It's weird how there's this line between kind of, is it like a creepy type of love that he has, or is it like this platonic, oh, he is the aesthetic symbol of everything beautiful? And Aschenbach kind of like questions this a lot, or it's questioned what is going on in his head, like what type of attraction does he feel? And yeah, for what it's worth, earlier in the book too, there's this kind of a foreboding, sentiment going on when he notices that in Venice, he walks across in the streets this man who dyed his hair, and he's like clearly so painfully trying to be young and trying to harken back in whatever way to those golden years, and it's just like not working out. And he's just like, it horrifies him. I think it's like gives him this very existential, dread of his own demise and of his own mortality, and that's kind of what the book is about. Is kind of this, and obviously there's gonna be spoilers ahead, but yeah, it doesn't end prettily. I mean, it doesn't end on a rosy note. I mean, Aschenbach is kind of, he feels like he's had everything to say artistically, and he wanders around Venice, and he's too embarrassed, especially because of the connotations, what would be thought of him if he, was revealed to be following this young boy. And he once, I think, at most makes like eye contact with him and notices him in like an elevator and a lift, and I think he's in the same hotel, so it's like this awkward thing between him and his parents, and he never reveals it, and it's like this. It's sad because it's this type of fondness for like this pure, innocent, it hasn't been tainted by the world, and he's just and he is, old and like past his prime, and he feels more and more like depressed. And throughout, later in the novel, the final kind of act, I suppose, he finally, I think, just lies down, I think, in a park somewhere, and he dies shortly after, and he's like one last kind of frantic type of confession of his love, of his adoration of Tadzio, and yeah, that's how he goes out. Like, it's like pretty sad because I think at first, no, right before that, Tadzio actually, at first they actually make a kind of a contact. Like, he looks at him and smiles fondly, and that it's at first it's nothing creepy. It's just like an actual, like an admonition of just like a mutual connection that they made for a second, that bereft of any creepy endeavors or anything. So from what I garnered, and yeah, that's how it ends. Pretty depressing, to put it shortly. But I definitely highly recommend. But yeah, be prepared to kind of go pretty deep into the psychology of Aschenbach. Kind of. I mean, for what it's worth, I believe Thomas Mann was bisexual, I think, or he was, and might have been a author's self, kind of a Roman de Clef type of thing going on, where he's kind of inserting elements of his own character. But to what extent, I'd have to do more research on Thomas Mann. But if I know anything, if I'm right and correct in assuming, 19th, or early 20th century Germany, Europe, even the most progressive areas at the time, France even, I know Oscar Wilde had to flee to France, and I think even they weren't fully accepting of his, of his homosexuality. And so when Thomas Mann, I think he kept it a secret most of his life, and he ends up marrying, he had a wife, I think, a lifelong partner. So, yeah, definitely recommend. This is a shorter review because I feel like I don't want to linger on something that's already been said before, and that there's maybe not entirely new. I've seen essays and stuff, like different people arguing about what type of attraction Tadzio had, or what type of he had towards the young boy, and it's kind of never fully known. That's what I like about it. It's kept ambiguous. And yeah, Death in Venice, Thomas Mann. Definitely recommend. If you like this, like and subscribe if you want to. And I do have a Patreon link, which I usually try to keep somewhere in my channel. So if it's not in my description, just ask me about it in the comments, or look at my channel, and it should be there somewhere in the about info. I'm not I'm not necessarily like desperate for money, but if it's something that you feel compelled to, go ahead and do that. So yeah, thank you for watching, and until next time.